It's 5:30 on a Tuesday evening, and you're standing at the convenience store counter with a $5 bill folded in your hand, a can of soda sweating in the other. The clerk slides a lottery ticket across the counter without even looking up. $5. You don't think twice. Nobody does. $5 is the price of not having to make a decision. You scratch it off in the parking lot using a quarter from your cup holder. Nothing. You knew it would be nothing. You toss it onto the passenger seat next to 3 others from this week, finish half the soda, and drive home. By tomorrow, you won't even remember this happened. That's the whole point of $5. It's the exact amount small enough to disappear without a trace. Now keep that $5 in your head, because this is a story about that same $5 every single day for 40 years, and about the 2 completely different people it quietly turns you into. You're 25. Same store, next evening, same cashier. This time you skip the ticket. You skip the soda. You walk out empty-handed, sit in your car, and open an app you downloaded the night before. You send $5 into an index fund, a tiny slice of the entire stock market. One tap, no guesswork needed. The screen shows a balance of $5. It looks laughable, like planting one seed and calling it a farm. There's no rush, no thrill, no scratching off a winning number. Just $5 parked inside something that owns a piece of nearly every major company in the country. You repeat it the next day and the day after that. You automate it so you never have to feel the moment of choosing, so the money leaves your account before you can spend it on something wrapped in plastic. About $150 a month quietly slides out into something you'll never physically hold. You barely notice it going. That was always the odd thing about the $5. It vanished either way. You just chose where. You're 26 now. A full year later, your balance reads close to $1,900. You put in $1,825 yourself. The market added in the rest while you weren't watching, about $75. A number small enough to feel like a joke. You mention it at lunch to a coworker named Daniel. He asks how much you've made. You tell him. He laughs, not meanly, just honestly. $75 in a whole year? I will make that in one afternoon. And he's not wrong. He grabs takeout daily, a drink from the corner store most evenings, and a lottery ticket whenever the jackpot gets big enough to talk about. Roughly $5 a day, spread across 100 tiny pleasures he won't remember by next week. You don't argue. You just close your laptop. The gap between you and him this year is $75 and one invisible habit. The $75 was never the point. The habit was. You're 30 now. 5 years in. Balance. Around $11,000. You contributed about $9,000 of it. The rest showed up out of thin air. $11,000 built entirely from things you chose not to buy. One night you do the math and realize it's roughly equal to every can of soda, every fast food run, every impulse buy you've skipped at every counter since you were 25, except instead of sitting in a landfill, it's sitting in an account with your name on it. That same month, a friend named Jack texts you a screenshot. Some coin you've never heard of, up 400% in a week. He's dropped $2,000 into it. He tells you to stop playing it safe, that your boring fund makes in a year what his coin makes before lunch. He's right about the speed but wrong about the direction. You've seen this exact shape before. On a counter, under a coin, in a parking lot. The promise that a small amount turns into a big one instantly, with nothing in between. That promise has a name where you grew up. It's called a scratch ticket. You text back that you'll sit this one out. He sends a laughing emoji and buys more. 3 months later, the coin has dropped 90%, and he's gone quiet about it. You keep doing the single most boring thing a person can do with money. Early to bed, slow to rich. You're 35, 10 years in. Balance, roughly $27,800. You've contributed $18,000 of your own money. The market has added almost $10,000 more, simply because you didn't flinch. Then the year turns bad. The whole market drops. The news calls it a crash. Your balance falls by a third in a matter of weeks. More paper losses than you earned all year at your job. Jack, who sold everything at the bottom of the last downturn, tells you he called this one too, that he's sitting safely in cash. You don't sell, though it's less a decision and more a quiet non-action. You simply stop opening the app. You let the number fall, and you keep sending your $150 a month, buying the same fund while it's cheaper than it's been in years. You're not brave, you're just bored enough to do nothing, and doing nothing turns out to be the rarest skill in investing. By the time everyone agrees it's finally safe to jump back in, your boring habit has already scooped up the bottom nobody saw coming. You're 40. 15 years in. The market recovered the way it always eventually has, and your balance sits around $52,600. You've put in roughly $27,000 total. For the first time in your life, the account holds more than you ever fed into it. Read that twice. It's the moment everything changes shape. Up until now, you were pushing a boulder uphill $5 at a time, barely nudging it. Now the boulder is rolling downhill on its own, and your only job is staying out of its way. That spring, a coworker named Katie gets laid off. She has no cushion, nothing standing between her and a missed paycheck except the next one. You have a number you've never touched, quietly sitting in the background. For the first time, you realize the $5 was never just about some distant retirement. It was also a wall between you and the version of a bad year that turns into panic. You don't mention any of this to her. You just buy her lunch and say nothing. You're 45, 20 years in. Balance, about $89,000. You've contributed $36,000 across 2 decades, $5 at a time, and the market has more than doubled it without asking permission. Something strange starts happening. The money the market hands you each year is starting to rival what you personally put in. Your account has quietly taken on a second job you never assigned. That summer, you go to a reunion. Someone pulls up in a car worth more than your yearly salary. Someone else won't stop talking about their watch. You drive the same paid-off car you've had for 8 years, the one that owes nobody anything. Daniel is there too, the same guy who laughed at your $75 all those years ago. He still grabs takeout daily. He still buys the ticket. He asks, half joking, whether you ever kept up with that little app. You tell him you did. He asks how much is in there now. You tell him. The table goes quiet in a way you didn't ask for and don't particularly enjoy. You change the subject. The $5 was never loud. It never needed to be. You're 50, 25 years in. Balance, around $144,000. You've put in about $45,000 total, and the market has tripled it without your permission. You read the headlines differently now. They run stories about how people your age have almost nothing saved, how a comfortable retirement is drifting out of reach, how the math doesn't work anymore for regular earners. You are a regular earner. Same kind of job as the people in those headlines, similar salary, same rent, same traffic. The only difference is that you quietly skipped a lottery ticket and a cold drink for 25 straight years and funneled the difference into the plainest, most unremarkable fund available. Your friends your age talk about retirement like a cliff they're being pushed toward. You talk about it like weather, something arriving whether you worry about it or not. You don't say that part out loud either. By now you understand. The number is loudest when it stays completely silent. You're 55, 30 years in, balance, around $226,000. You've contributed roughly $55,000 total across 3 decades, in amounts small enough to lose inside a couch cushion. The other $170,000 was never yours to earn. It belonged to time, and you simply gave time enough room to do its work. This is the year the math quietly flips for good. The account now grows more in a strong year, purely from its own size, than you could add by hand even if you doubled your contributions. You've become a passenger riding your own balance. What you built is now bigger than the act of building it. You don't talk about the number. Not with your kids, not with coworkers, not with Jack, who once called you a coward for playing it safe. The number lives somewhere nobody looks, which is exactly where it grew. You're 65. 40 years from that first evening you skipped the scratch ticket. Balance, about $531,000. Sit with this breakdown because it's the entire story told in 3 figures. Of that $500,000, the amount you actually put in, $5 a day, every day for 4 decades comes to $73,000. The remaining $458,000 is pure growth. Money you never worked for, never watched arrive, never even noticed leaving. You didn't get lucky. You didn't pick a winner. You didn't time anything perfectly. You simply skipped a lottery ticket and a cold drink around 40,000 times in a row and let the smallest possible amount sit in the most boring possible place for the longest possible stretch of time. That's the whole mechanism. There's no hidden second trick. No shortcut that hands you the $458,000 any faster. The slowness was the cost, and almost nobody is willing to pay a bill that takes 40 years to clear. Daniel retires the same year you do. Same job the whole way through, same salary, never missed a shift, a genuinely decent guy. He spent his $5 a day on 1,000 small comforts he enjoyed in the moment and can't name a single one of now. Over 40 years, his version of the $5 also added up to $73,000. The exact same money. He drank it, scratched it, ate it, left it on the passenger seat. You two stood at the same counter, holding the same $5 bill, on the same evenings, for 40 years straight. He walks away with a lifetime of small pleasures and a pension. You walk away with those same small pleasures, mostly, plus $500,000 sitting quietly behind your life like a second person who's been working this whole time without ever clocking out. Nobody can point to the exact day the two of you split apart. There wasn't one. There were just two different answers to the same tiny question, asked again every single evening, until the answers stopped being choices and quietly became two different lives. Somewhere right now, it's 5:30 in the evening, and someone is standing at a counter with a $5 bill already in their hand. The can of soda, the scratch ticket the cashier slides over without looking up. They'll scratch it off in the parking lot with a coin from the cup holder, and it'll be nothing, and some part of them already knew it would be nothing. They're not doing anything wrong. $5 is nothing. That has always been both the trap and the door standing wide open. The $5 is too small to matter, which is exactly why almost nobody keeps it, and exactly why it quietly decides everything for the handful of people who do. You were never going to feel that $5 either way. The only real choice was what it turned you into while you weren't paying attention.